The car is back, and not just any car. That is, of course, tiny football car. Tabla, lovely ball. Ollie Bassett from in close. What a shot from Bassett. Opens up to his weaker right foot. Finds Noah Jensen. Another long-range effort. Jensen's done it.
It comes off of the leg. The ball is in the back of the net, off the foot of Alejandro Diaz.
It is Corey Bent to play it in. Salter heads it down. It's loose for Shala. Off the post, Garcia! Better ball from Bent going up Santos and Shala. Salter! Played it in. It is in!
Osaze to Rosario, stopped by Serwa, rebound Abdi Serwa again! Rea, and what a strike! It is a thing of beauty!
A thing of beauty indeed. That was the week that was, week 6 in the Canadian Premier League. Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Newsroom as we recap a fantastic weekend in the Canadian Premier League. Christian Jack, as usual, alongside Charlie O'Connor-Clark here. We hope you're joining us in a happy place and you certainly enjoyed a lot of the matches this past weekend. In the next hour, we will look back on 4 more games in the Canadian Premier League. We'll hear from you. We'll hear from the managers. We'll hear from some key players. And also a special guest will join us later. And you could say he's certainly one of the current leading early candidates for Player of the Year. We will tell you who he is when he joins us in around half an hour's time. We may sprinkle in some hockey chat. Charlie O'Connor-Clark.
I don't think we will.
I don't think we want to
we're
do
okay.
that.
No.
I was going to ask you how your weekend was. Being a Leaf fan, you did 2 CPL games. Can you give me a kind of summary of how your weekend was without worrying about anything to do with hockey?
No. It was a great weekend. I had a lot of fun exclusively watching football matches and doing nothing else. So that's what we're gonna roll with. I had a great time.
Hey, and Villa signed Philip Coutinho, so let's put.
They did.
Yeah. Those of you not aware,
couldn't beat Palace, but
couldn't beat Palace, but that's okay. We got Coutinho for the long term. We're big Villa fans here, in case you weren't sure. Results this week: Forge 1, Atletico Ottawa 1 on Saturday. Charlie and I were both there for that. We'll get to that later in the show. Pacific 2, FC Edmonton 1. We'll hear from Alex as usual on the whole things Pacific. Halifax Wanderers 2, Cavalry 2, a barn burner. The Wanderers grounds on Sunday. We'll get Mitchell Tierney on shortly for that as well. And the final one we'll start with this week. Valor 1, York United 0. We'll work front to back. And basically, Valor 1, York 0. This was an entertaining game. Let's get to the highlights. A wide open game. Both teams obviously looking to try and get the best out of third game in almost a week with the Canadian Championship in midweek. Of course, York knocked out Atletico Ottawa on penalties. Valor were knocked out by the Vancouver Whitecaps of Major League Soccer at BC Place on Wednesday night. I didn't think that fatigue played too much of a factor, Charlie. Certainly in the first half, maybe it was a little bit languid, a little bit slow. But this was a tremendous game in the end. Two CF Montreal loanies, Jonathan Siwa and Sean Ray, are getting the headlines.
Yeah. As Sirwa certainly seems to do a lot. I think that's 4 out of his 5 CPL penalties faced now. He's stopped, which is just absurd,
ridiculous. Yeah,
just insane to me. Like, we asked Sean Ray after the game about that, and he said, we honestly aren't even worried anymore when we give up a penalty because Sirwa is just so. He just has that kind of knack for it, for reading a player and for getting off his line quickly. These are Rea as well, 2 very talented players. We see his goal coming up on the screen here. These are 2 players that I don't think it'll be very long before we're seeing both of them playing in MLS, because they're that talented. And there's clearly, a reason that Valor were so keen on getting them both back on loan from CF Montreal, and a reason that CF Montreal were so keen on getting these guys these professional minutes in a difficult competitive league. So, a very good afternoon for Valor, who really had to weather a bit of a storm at times, especially coming out of halftime. York really, really kind of dominated that 20 minutes out of the break. They had a lot of those chances. They win the penalty, they miss it. And then Valor just finds that one moment of magic, which seems to be something that a lot of players in that team can produce at any moment, which is sometimes in this league all you need to get that win in a close game, right?
Yeah, you're on the game for us at CanPL.ca. I was calling the game with the great Matt Cullen for One Soccer. By the way, all highlights on this show courtesy of One Soccer as always. I love the word you used. You called it dazzling. in your recap. And I thought that was a really good way of putting it. It was a dazzling goal, right? Because it wasn't just a smash. It was a little bit of footwork. It was a little bit of genius, a little bit of creativity. And it also, for those who didn't see it, was a goal out of nothing, Charlie. They couldn't get anything going, Valor, attack-wise. And that's worthy of mentioning and too in the storyline of this game.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Like, especially in that second half, they were really, really kind of struggling to get into the attacking third at all, because York was doing, as they usually do, a very good job of kind of plugging lanes in the midfield and just really making it hard for teams to get up the pitch. So the ball just happens to get into that space, and Sean Rea, talented player he is, just kind of dribbles in a phone booth there, just with very, very little space. He's good with both feet, which really helps in those kinds of situations to get out of trouble. And then the space just opens up a tiny bit for him. There's like a foot of space where he can just sort of see the bottom corner, and he just goes for it. And, to have the confidence to do that is something special. And then to have the ability to actually execute it is another level. So, yeah, I mean, I think York are a little disappointed. It's a little harsh to come away with nothing from that game, I think.
Agree. Yeah.
Maybe a draw is probably a fair result for that game. But, in this league, when you're Valor, you cannot complain when, you play quite well against a difficult team. The ball doesn't seem to be falling for you in attack, but then you do find that moment. And then that's the kind of thing that can put you into playoffs or not, right? When you have those kinds of results where it comes together for you at the end.
Yeah. And for me, you summarized it perfectly. The ability, the strength of how quickly the ball came off the foot as well, right?
Yeah.
How hard he hit it. And I was surprised Nico Giansopoulos was. It was literally a split second from dancing around Jordan Wilson, who had a really good game, to the moment he turns and the ball's in the back of the net. That's how quick it was. Wilson turned to look, and the ball's gone past Giansopoulos. Not just an unsavable shot in the Canadian Premier League. We'll get to more on York because I think there's a lot to dissect with them in a second. But let's talk about Valor a little bit more. And before we get into Jonathan Siwa and his unbelievable record from the spot, here are the thoughts of Valor boss, their head coach and technical director. Here's Flip Dos Santos.
I think that every time we were put in a bit more of a dangerous position was, a bad giveaway in our half or a poor decision on the ball. But overall, I think we were the best team in the first half, and we finished the half well. I think that we had, half chances. We were getting in behind and chances to put balls in and square balls near the 6-yard box. So I felt we should have had a goal at that point in time in the game. The games it's like that. There's going to be high moments and low moments, and you need to manage those. And they came out better in the second half. I think they adjusted the way they pressed. In the first half, Fordyce, Guti were getting a lot more time and space on the ball in our build-up phase. And then they adjusted. They went with their two of their midfielders pushing on our two midfielders, and it made it hard for us. And we started to give too many balls away in our half. And they were, I would say, for maybe 25 minutes of the second half, the best team. Then comes the PK in a moment where we were in a low, and Joe makes the save. And this is what it is. This is how football games go. We were able to take care of that moment. And then I think that the substitutions we made helped us. It gave us control again of the game. I think they were targeting a little bit our exit and our possession on the left side as a reference of pressure, and Guti just gave us a little bit of calm and composure there, and then Jacob came in the game very well. And the goal is an act of genius when you look at it again, and how he gets out of that pressure and still have the ability to finish the way he finished. These are games that are decided often on one action, one play, and it went our side today.
Act of genius, a good way of describing it. Jonathan Siwa now 4 from 5 stopping penalties in the Canadian Premier League. Osvaldo Ramirez, Joe Mason, Marco Bustos, Azazi Di Rosario, some big names on there. By the way, Adam Jenkins has the information all on his Twitter if you need to see them. Alejandro Diaz is the only player who beat him. And if you go back and watch it like I've done this morning, he actually does him that day. Diaz goes up and Siwa's already about to go, and Siwa actually doesn't save. He doesn't make a save. He doesn't move because he's reading the legs. And that's how I think he stops a lot of these penalties. He reads it. De Rosario didn't look at all. But just a monumental save at a crucial time as well, Charlie, because, Phil Dos Santos alluded to it. That was a really difficult moment for Valor at that point. York came out in the second half and were by far and away the better side and deserved the chance to take the lead at that moment.
Yeah, that's absolutely what happened. York came out. Phil mentions that York kind of adjusted the way they were playing in midfield. We've spoken about that double pivot that they use a lot, and it's very effective, especially when it seemed like they maybe wanted to get that midfield a little bit more pressing on Valor's to try and get themselves a little bit higher up the pitch, win the ball a little higher up the pitch, and they get into the box. And again, it's Sean Rea to the rescue, because that was, as Phil said, a low moment in the match for Valor that they had to survive, which they did. The penalty, it's an unfortunate play for Moses Dyer, who, just kind of, it's a quick one. It's hard to react and get your arm out of the way when the ball comes in like that.
It's the right decision, though, I think.
It is a penalty, absolutely. Yeah. But it's, it's unfortunate. It's not it's not a malicious tackle or anything like that. No. It's just the letter of the law. That is a penalty. It's an unfortunate moment for them, but they're redeemed by Jonathan Sirois, who is often a hero for this side. And we've spoken about goalkeepers on this podcast in the past, and it's not a bad thing for a team when your goalkeeper has to make saves, because again, he's one of 11 guys on the pitch. And they learn from that moment. They're rescued. They don't go down, and it ends up coming their way. So it's a bit of a fortunate one for Valor, but certainly deserving of the result in the end.
Yeah, in your piece, Phil Dos Santos is quoted as saying, quote, "He did what he did last year for this club, and that's why we waited so long to make sure we would get him back." He ends the quote by saying, that he's always going to give you a chance to win. Still only 20, the current reigning goalkeeper of the year in the Canadian Premier League, getting his reps here on loan from CF Montreal. Here is his teammate at CF Montreal and teammate at Valor, the match winner, Sean Rea, talking about Jonathan Sirois.
Well, it was an amazing goal, honestly. When I saw the ball on my feet, I saw 3 guys around me, and I'm like, how am I going to get out of this? So my body honestly just took over, found a way out, and I'm like, this is my chance. And I just shot left corner and it went in, and it was like just a rush of emotions. It was honestly incredible.
Of course, it's Rea on his goal. What of York, though, Charlie? Because I thought defensively they were very, very good. Again, you could make the case that the back four was absolutely tremendous. It has to be said, Verhoeven was ill, non-COVID related sickness. They missed him in midfield. They've got a lot of players out. Obviously, no Thompson didn't play in this game either. Petrasso still hurt. Gutierrez was on the bench. They played a lot of minutes this week. They'd gone to 90 minutes plus penalties. What of them? What did you think of their performance in this one? Defensively, I thought they were very, very good.
Yeah, they were very good defensively, and they're starting to build, that base from the back they can play out of. I really like how, they've started to develop some consistency in the back there. Obviously, I think Kristovic Ensa had a very good game on the right side there. And the way that he's able to both either get up the pitch, or sometimes he tucks inside when Diadine Abzi's going up that left side, and it functions almost as a back three in possession sometimes. But there's definitely a lot to like in the way that York kind of build from the back. And this was an interesting one for them with the way that they lined up, because it's quite a different attacking setup. You've got Mateo Hernandez on one wing and Eduardo Jesus on the left. And I think he's more naturally a fullback, but he plays, quite high up in this game and on the left wing. And then Lowell Wright kind of in the middle as a sort of second striker, playing off Osaza de Rosario. It's a bit of a different look for York, and they were trying to get into those pockets, and they found a lot of them, especially as we said early in that second half. And, they managed to create some of these chances. I think there's still a little bit of that, sharpness and that chemistry that they're looking to build in the final third there. They're not quite there yet, but it's something that's coming along, because again, when you rotate personnel through a front four like that, it takes a while for that to start clicking, especially when a lot of these players are newer to the team. But, there's clearly a lot of individual talent in that group. So I think I'd be quite happy with the early signs if I'm Martin Nash.
I'd be very happy too. I thought the press was very good as well. As an attack, sometimes when you take points off other teams, and I think of Dom Zator's late equalizer against Ottawa, sometimes it comes back, right? The swings and roundabouts. We'll get to that with Cavalry in a second. But what about expected goals against for York? I know what my eyes tell me. They've been very good defensively. I ran the numbers today. They have the best defensive record with expected goals against in the league. 0.8 expected goals per game. 4.8 expected goals through 6 games. The best 0.8. Halifax and Pacific are behind them. Pacific are 0.85 per game. So I think it speaks for themselves. They're very difficult to break down. Before we move on to the next game, here are the thoughts of their head coach. Here's Martin Nash.
Yeah, I think maybe the result feels a bit harsh in the end. It was a fantastic goal to win a match, to be fair, but I thought we should have at least stopped him. We fouled with 3 guys around him, allowed him to go through, but fantastic finish. It's always tough after you miss a penalty too to, I feel like you have the game a little bit. But I thought we were good for the first 35 minutes of the first half, and I thought we were good for the first 35 minutes of the second half, really. And I thought we tailed off at the end of 2 halves.
Very fair assessment. I actually think Phil DeSantis' substitutes had a bit more of an impact than Martin.
Carlos.
Yes, Carlos was excellent. The draft pick, we should say, real technical quality, and he obviously assisted on the goal as well. Let's move on to the Wanderers grounds and bring in Mitchell Tierney, who was our correspondent on this game, as Halifax Wanderers 2, Cavalry 2 was the finish. Mitch, you're taking on Benedict's role. You're getting entertaining games every week, my man. Great to see you. Talk us through this one, a classic game at the Wanderers grounds.
Yeah, absolutely. And a game where coming in, both teams talked about, how defensive it was probably going to be. Neither side scored more than 2 goals in a game. And you see here the first of many set piece goals that we're going to see. All 4 goals in this game scored on set pieces. And Cavalry really tried in this game to clog up the box, really get around Christian Oxter, make him indecisive at moments like that. And you saw the dividends there. And then Halifax on their set pieces, they often targeted Sam Salter at the back. You see a brilliant header there from him, heading it down instead of heading it up, which then obviously comes back, and Garcia's on the spot to put it in. And yeah, obviously we just keep going. We keep rolling the set piece highlights here, and here's Salter again, and this time just a calm, brilliant finish. And I'm sure we'll talk plenty about Sam Salter in the coming moments about his performance, because he was excellent. And this moment really looked to seal what would have been a huge win for Halifax at Wanderers ground. But, Cavalry, they were the best road team in the Canadian Premier League for a reason last year, and they steal one at the death here. I don't think they expected Dan Klomp to be their offensive dynamo during this game, but he certainly was, and a goal and an assist for the Cavalry center back.
Yeah, Cavalry, it's a good point that they are a very good road team.
A really good game. A really good game, right, Charlie? I was covering it for One Soccer as well, and it was a tremendous game.
Yeah, it was. And sorry, I agree with Mitch about Cavalry being a very good team away from home, partly because of the way that they're able to, play that physical game, plug things up in the middle, and create set pieces. Right. And again, they're one of the best teams in the league at scoring from those set pieces because of just the aerial dominance they have. Some of the center backs they have who are able to get up in the air and win those balls and put them in net. And, they're not a team that ever really feels out of a game, right? Especially towards the end of a match. So it just the way that they're able to, especially away from home at a difficult place to play, like the Wanderers ground, the way that they're able to maybe just use that physicality to kind of stop them from getting into a rhythm, stop them from kind of getting the crowd into it, to just slow things down when they need to, find those opportunities. And I think we lost KJ for a second there. I thought it was my internet, but good to learn that it's not this time my fault. But anyway, yeah, Mitch, just Cavalry do seem to be that team that's going to come into people's houses and make things difficult for them on their own turf, right?
Yeah, and I think we can see a team that is able to do things in different ways, obviously, and like we said with this one, actually, as well as last week, Tommy Wilden Jr. mentioned their set piece dominance against Edmonton as well. Yeah. But I mean, this is a team that can attack you out wide. This is a team that has great strikers and great striker depth now as well, with Meyer Bevan starting to show up. And, this is a team now that is showing to be dominant on set pieces. So it's really tricky to stop Cavalry right now because they can beat you in so many different ways.
Yeah, sorry, I lost you guys there for a little bit of issues. There's big storms going on where I am. Let's hear from Tommy Wilden Jr. after this one.
Yeah, we work on it every week, and like I said, that's where the credit goes. Leon Apka does a lot of our attacking set plays, and and movement, and looking at the opposition. And the oppositions change, and sometimes you do have to kind of read and react. But we do spend times, because in this league, in a league of parity, it does come down to it. We won the game against Edmonton on 2 set plays, and now we've come away with a road point. It's massive, because Halifax aren't going to give you a lot, especially at home. So you've got to make them stretch and pay as best as you can.
We'll get into more on Halifax with Mitchell in a second. Before we do that, though, let's go to the man at the moment in the 94th minute, Dan Klomp, the equalizing hero.
It wasn't the best performance. Like, we know coming here is a hard game. We got to respect and understand the conditions here. It's a 6-hour flight, 3-hour time difference, and the pitch is not optimal to play, so we can't really play the game the way we want to play it. But yeah, it was a bit of a scrappy game, but in the end we come away with 1 point. And
Mitchell, let's talk about Halifax. Still only lost ever 4 games at home at the Wanderers ground. You were all over that in your preview this week. Coming into this season, the concern about them was goal scoring, chance creation, how they're able to finish games and score enough goals to be able to do that. Now, they've lost Morelli, who obviously is not coming back for this season, and I would have felt that it would have been a massive impact on them. But attack-wise, they're putting together a very different-looking team here. Garcia played a little bit deeper, almost sat on Elliot Simmons as a false 9. They let Bent go one way and Salter the other. What did you overall think about their attack? Because without Morelli, they look certainly a bit more of a dangerous threat than they did last year, where I think 19 out of 28 games, they scored 1 goal or less.
Yeah, I do think there's a bit of a dichotomy right now versus how they play at home versus away. Like, I think that's something Stephen Hart talked about as well, where they need to bring this form that they have in front of that incredible crowd at Wanderers ground when they travel with them. But yeah, like you said, at home, it's been very impressive. And they just made another big signing this week with former Ottawa Fury striker Morris Sam, who is going to come in and they're very excited about the talent that he has. So I think they should be more than happy, especially with the development of Salter. Garcia is looking back to his abilities, and Bent is picking up as well. So I think they've combined well, and it's been impressive. And I think that was the big takeaway from Halifax, especially from open play. They were far and away the better attacking side.
Yeah, you talk about Samuel Salter. Let's go back to the Wanderers grounds and hear from him after this one.
Yeah, well, it was across second post, and I think someone missed the first header, so I was just there in good position to score a volley, so that was nice.
Mitch, you wrote after the game, quote, Salter showed several different facets of what makes the 21-year-old one of the most promising young attackers in the league, be it his ability to get in behind, his clever movement and composure on set pieces, or his ability to beat players with the ball at his feet. He was one of the most dangerous players on the park. And now, after being on the periphery of being a starter last year, in and out, as Halifax could not find any kind of formula, this has got to be one of the guys who's one of the first on the team sheet for Stephen Hart, surely.
Yeah, I think even when we haven't seen him as a starter this year, when he comes on, he just instantly impacts that Halifax attack. And I think the biggest thing for me, especially him being a young striker, is just that composure. I mean, we see it on both of the plays where, the first play comes in and it's a bit high, the cross, but he's able to get over it and head it down instead of just looping it back up into the box. And I think that gives Shala the opportunity to attack it in a better way. And that's a smart play. And then obviously beating Carducci in an area where a lot of guys just take a swing at that, right? But he takes the second to set himself well. And I think even with the chance he had in the second half where he hits the post, he waits out Carducci on it, and obviously the split inches away from what would have been another goal. But I thought it was another excellent performance, and Salter's showing composure beyond his years.
Composure is a really good word, I think, for this and it's a very important one for Halifax to be able to describe Halifax with at this point, because it's something that I think they, apart from Morelli, they didn't have in front of goal last year. They would be able to create chances, but then the ball would go over the net or trickle harmlessly into a goalkeeper's hands. So for them to actually have, this little bit of extra confidence, this ability to see the play and place the ball better on a set piece or an attacking chance, that is massive, massive news for this club. Because, last year, again, it wasn't the chance creation that was the problem. It was mostly the finishing. I don't think I've ever seen a team underperform their expected goals the way Halifax did last year. So if they are able to be a little bit more composed, a little bit, more cool in front of net and put those balls away, then they'll be okay, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you. Here are the thoughts of their boss after the game. Here's Stephen Hart.
I thought the team played well. I knew I had some concerns once our centre back got injured, because I knew that at that time of the game, you don't want to lose a centre back, and they're a big team, and we were dealing with them fairly well. But the entire game came down to a game of set plays. All 4 goals were from set plays, and I think we had an opportunity to take the ball to the corner flag, but young player, a little enthusiastic, but the leadership on the field should have guided him better, because he can't hear us from the bench. So yeah, and then we got caught on the wrong side of Musi, had to foul, and they got the goal. I think it came off his back, actually. I don't think he headed it, but yeah, it's unfortunate.
Tough one for Stephen Hart. But let's just say this, Mitchell, your final comment on Halifax. They got Forge on Friday night, then they got Toronto FC at home, and then they got York at home. So 3 big clubs coming in, and Halifax are in a good spirit right now.
Yeah, we're going to find out how much of an advantage the Wanderers ground really is over the next couple of games. I will say, running the numbers, they don't have quite as much of an advantage in the Canadian Championship. They've lost a couple of matches, even some of the ties they've won. They've lost the home round there, but certainly we saw again why it's such a great and difficult place for opponents to come, but a great place for them. So we'll really find out what this Halifax team is about over the next couple of weeks, as you said.
Appreciate it. Great job, Mitchell Tierney. Again, read all his work at CanPL.ca and an outstanding analysis piece. Again, thanks a lot, Mitchell. He's right, though, about Halifax, Charlie, because, at the end of the day, they're in better spirits than we imagined they would be prior to this, right? I mean, when the Morelli injury happened, I think many of us thought, they'll be closer to the bottom than they will be to the top. But here they are. They're fully in contention here for a playoff spot, competitively all season.
Yeah, I mean, almost everybody is, I think, at the moment, because the league table is very tight at the moment. But yeah, Halifax are probably quite pleased with the progress they're making. Obviously, in a very difficult situation when Morelli goes down like that, but they didn't really have much of a choice but to figure it out and make it work. And if some of these players are starting to put balls in the net, Akeem Garcia in particular, if he is able to find that scoring form, then this team can actually make some noise because of that base that they have of being so difficult to beat as well.
From east to west, let's bring in our man out west. Again, Alex Gange-Rusick was in Victoria for this clash out west as the Pacific. The champs just keep on rolling. Alex, they defeat FC Edmonton by 2-1. Great to see you. Thanks for joining us. Your overall thoughts on this one as we roll the highlights from Starlight Stadium?
Yeah, I mean, Pacific just continue to find a way, especially at home. I mean, it was something I asked about after the game. It's 5 wins now for Pacific this year. All 5 have been decided by 1 goal. They just keep finding a way to get out on the top of these 1-game matches. But I think that's really the champions mentality. I mean, there are some aspects of it. They maybe wonder, okay, you don't need to make every game tight. Like a game like this, you're up 2-0 at home. Edmonton makes a late push, makes things exciting. I think that was something that Pacific wants to clean out of their game, but they continue to find a way to come out on top. But on the other side, I think full credit to Edmonton. Not only did they come into this game severely undermanned after, a busy couple of weeks of action. They left home a bunch of their best and, most important players. And despite that, they were running with a very, young and experimental lineup, and they put in a shift. They did not look outmanned at all. They were working hard. They were quite organized for a lot of the game. And I think the fact they were even able to make a late push despite going down 2-0 was a full credit to them. So overall, I'd say it was a very, solid game. At the end of the day, Pacific did what they've been doing all year, which is just finding a way when they need to just grit their teeth, grind it, and get the job done.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt that Pacific are the team to beat in the CPL right now, right? They come in as champions and they demonstrate why pretty much from the very beginning of the season. And I think we're definitely seeing teams come up against them and want to put in their best effort against that team because somebody wants to be we saw Cavalry do it at home, but everybody wants to go into Starlight Stadium and spoil that party because Pacific have just been so good there. And I think we're seeing teams, kind of hold on and just try to get something out of that game towards the end, right? In Edmonton in particular, they have done it a few times this year where, the first half is very difficult for them. They struggle a little bit. They let in a few goals, but that team, despite how young they are, how new they are, like how little time they've had to really build chemistry, they do not quit in a game. Sure. I don't think any game that we've seen Edmonton play have we seen them kind of fold in the last 20 minutes. And there are certainly games where it felt like teams could, when you go down 2 goals or something and it's really not going well. Edmonton somehow seems to find that little bit of energy at the end to at least get a goal, to get something, to get something that they can build off of and remember that game for. So I am impressed by that. But again, Pacific, I think James Merriman said after the game that he wanted his team to maybe kill off games a little bit earlier. And there's games where it felt like they've done that, but then they let the other team in just a little bit. It still doesn't feel like they're very threatened at the end of these games, but the score lines are maybe not necessarily reflective of the way that they've dominated a full game, right?
Yeah, it's a great observation, Charlie. I think that they obviously want to be able to have a bit more comfortable moments near the end of the game. And FC Edmonton, by the way, talk about making it uncomfortable. They did that to Cavalry in the CanChamp game. I commented on that game. Cavalry on the ropes at home late in that game midweek. Alex, a couple of things I want to ask you about. Maybe you can answer both of them. A 2-part question. First of all, the tactics. They go to a back 3, and you wrote that helped their wide players on our CanPL.ca analysis piece. Talk a little bit about seeing that live. And second of all, the feeling in that stadium right now. You went again. You've been there many times. Is there a feeling of just authority amongst the fans and expectation they're going to win, and enjoyment that they're feeling like they're seeing this? Is it a party atmosphere? They score a lot of goals early. They dominate the ball. This is going to be a fun environment. I know it's a 2-part question, but if you can just break them down that'd be great.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, to start, the back 3 was something I was fascinated with. I saw it on paper in warm-up. They were warming up as a back 3, so it was certainly a plan. As we kind of noted, it didn't always end up looking like a back 3. I do wonder if that's familiarity. Like Thomas Mergigur kept, pushing way over to, inside instead of, going all the way out to the left as he should. I think that was maybe a bit of him being a bit uncomfortable on his left foot. And then Abdou Samake just kind of naturally shifted into being a fullback. I think that's also a reflex from him playing there. But I think for the most part, it made a lot of sense. I mean, Samake was immense last year, especially in the, at the beginning when they first came back from the bubble. And then, obviously Mergigur was injured. Samake was, people forget he was one of the first choice center backs for a while there, and he was doing very well. I saw some dominant performances from him. So you have a guy like that just kind of sitting on the bench. You're running kind of with your first choice of Amir Didic, obviously Lucas McNaughton's replacement. You've got Mergigur back and healthy. The fact that you can kind of bring in a guy like Samake, it makes sense. And then the big reason why is the wingbacks. I think you look at Pacific's group. We've talked a lot about Kunle Dadaluke and his growth this year as a replacement for Caden Chung. You add in George Makumbelwa as his backup. I think can also offer similar potential long term from what I've seen from him these past few years with the Whitecaps. You go over on the left, you've got Nathan Mavilla who's come in. You've got Jordan Haynes, who is so reliable and solid. That's about as deep of a fullback group as you're getting in the CPL. It's not just the starters; it's the depth and the fact that you can. By switching to a back 3, we know the importance of a back 3. It's all in the wing backs. It's all about how you can get the control of the wing back. So it makes a lot of sense for Pacific. And I think that's something that Merriman kind of spoke about, because when I asked him, I was kind of wondering, like, okay, is this just an experiment? Is this because you're playing an Edmonton side where you're expecting to hold on to a lot of the ball? No, he said that he knows the profile of his players. He knows that this is something they can do. So he wanted to use it as a reference point. So I think it was a very, interesting move. And I think one that can suit Pacific a lot long-term based on their profile. And then to answer your other question, KJ, with the crowd, it's something you can just feel that there's the fans there. You talk to them, you see them. There's just, this expectation that they're going to win. And they're realistic about their team. You see, they know that Pacific hasn't really hit their quote unquote best, at least not enough this year. They're kind of still rolling through the gears. Yet when they play at home, they just know that they're going to score. When they need to grit out a win, their fans are going to be there cheering them on at the end if it's a 1-goal lead and they need to hold on. And for me, that's the most impressive thing, how every week they seem like on cue. They score within the first 10 minutes. They do what they need to. They survive a late push. And then the last 10 minutes, right when you think the other team's going to get back into the game, they kill the clock off so well. They bring in their subs and they're just taking the ball to the corner flag, just passing it around and making sure they don't make any sloppy mistakes. So it's a really professional team performance. And then the crowd, I think, just boosts that with how they cheer them on from the beginning with those early goals. And then right at that late push, you hear the drums, you hear it just continuing to push and to push. And it's kind of made this whole fun atmosphere where you know what you're expecting from these games.
Fantastic stuff. I mean, they're an absolute credit to our league, and they're streaking away with it right now. No other team has won more than 2 games. Pacific's won 5. Think about it that way. I know they've had some home games, but they are absolutely dominant right now. Alex, you're dominating stuff on our website as well. Congratulations. A great analysis piece again. Thanks for joining us, my man. We'll chat with you next week. Enjoy the week.
Awesome.
Thank you, Alex. We'll stay out west for our next guest, and we alluded to it off the top. The next guest is, without question, one of the favorites, the early favorites for Player of the Year so far in the Canadian Premier League. Dominating out there as well. It was Manny Aparicio, who's waiting patiently to join us. Manny, Christian, and Charlie, thanks for joining us. How are you feeling on Monday morning?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, my man. Again, another victory. We heard what Alex thought of it. We've read some of the analysis piece on our site. What was the thoughts of yourself and the club after winning on Saturday against Edmonton?
Yeah, just hearing there what you guys were talking about, I think I agree 100%. You know, we in the last few games, obviously we've come away with wins, but it's not that those types of wins where maybe we're 2-0 up at home and we're looking for that third to kind of kill teams off, and we haven't been able to do that yet. I think I read a stat from you guys yesterday about how we've been up by multiple goals, many times in the year already, but haven't been able to finish off games by more than 1 goal. And obviously at the end of the day, 3 points is 3 points. We're, like you just said, we're the only team with 5 wins. So, that gets us in first place, of course. But if we want to be, a little bit nitpicky and start seeing at the bigger picture, we have 28 games in a season, playoffs, cup coming up, CONCACAF as well later on in the season, you got to start, maybe killing teams off early. So I think that's our next step kind of moving forward as a team as well.
Yeah, Manny, as you mentioned, the schedule is going to get a lot busier for you guys in the next couple of months. So it's got to be really important, at least, to be, putting some of these results in the bag, even when you feel like you've got another gear to get to, right? You're still able to win these games and to put those points on the table, right? And even though you know that you can get better and you can continue to improve as the season goes on, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, you're always improving. You're always getting better. We're learning. The coaching staff is learning as well. We also have a young coaching staff. So we're all kind of in this together. But like you said, if we can put games early away, if we can get more subs in, we can get subs more minutes so they can feel fresher for games when we need them the most. We can start rotating the team. It'll come a long way when we can start, putting those games away, especially at home. So I feel like against Edmonton this last game, we went up 1-0 early on in the game, could have maybe had a second before half, and that changes the whole dynamic of the game.
Manny, I know you're a team first guy, and it's not easy to get you to talk about yourself, but I'm going to try. We've been raving individually about you so far this season. Again, you're in the team of the week again this week. It seems like your final third entries and your explosive runs from midfield are happening more often this season. You're certainly getting up higher up in the pitch a little bit more. That's what we think. When you go back, and I know how self-critical you can be, what are you thinking right now of your game? How are you analyzing your game? How different are you feeling about it?
Yeah, I would agree. I think with James and Armando, the assistant coach, they've given me a lot more freedom. With Pau, we were more of a structured midfield, which was great. Obviously, we won a championship, so we can't say anything about it. But for me personally, I feel like I found a little bit more form on the ball side of it. We have Jamar Dixon, who can most of the time hold a little bit more. This game it was me and him, but either before Baldissimo or Young, who also hold a bit more. So it gives me a little bit more freedom to try to get in the box on those late runs or put in those last passes up there and help the team try to assist and score. I think it's a big thing Armando has come in and talked to me about throughout all of preseason. And I think now we're finally starting to see it a little bit.
It's very impressive, I think, the way that Pacific, you guys are able to get into the attacking third and create chances. But the other thing that impresses me is, especially from the front, the work that you guys do off the ball to get it back. Manny, you're third in the league in recoveries and you're an attacking midfielder. right? So, I mean, first of all, how do you have the energy to press that much? Is it all the spin classes you're doing on Sundays?
Let's get to that for a second. That's a great line, by the way.
Know about that.
We got to get to this, Manny. You guys win again on Saturday. You're top of the league. No other team's won more than 2. You've won 5. You're expecting a nice day off. You know, maybe you got the fiance over. You cook a nice dinner, and then when did Merriman and Pacific drop this spin class that you guys were on?
Well, I think that's the hardest part. My fiance was the instructor, so I had no say. I had no say if I could go or not.
Whose idea was that? Was that your idea to go to that?
No. The team and Spinco, the company, kind of did like a partnership. So, you know, it was just a team outing, kind of like a regen day, but honestly, it wasn't much of a regen day. After the class, we were all dead. But it was good to kind of switch it up from on the field.
I love it. The guy's run like 12, 13 kilometers. He's just dominated midfield, and it's like, oh, you got to do a spin class now.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's amazing. And I didn't realize your fiance was running the class. It couldn't have been even better.
Yeah. Had to be front row and you're ready to go.
You had to be. Yeah, you had to be the most enthusiastic member of the class. Otherwise, you'd have heard it when you got home. No doubt about it. I love that. You mentioned James earlier. This team won the championship last year. You've got that winning mentality. We just talked to Alex about that. We've been there in the stadium. We feel it ourselves this year. Is that one of the biggest strengths of James, is that he's just continued to keep that going? Obviously, he was involved last year under par as well, but there doesn't seem like any, mentality drop off here at all, despite the change in head coach.
Yeah, I think so. I think a big thing has been he's been around from day one here. He knows exactly how things were run with other coaches, with Pa, with ownership, how everyone wants this club to kind of function and the path they want to take. So I think he's come in and he has that same mentality. He wants to win. From day one, he told us he wants to win the season and not just playoffs. He wants to be number one after the 28 games. I think he's mentioned that to you guys as well already. So he has that high expectation from us. He knows we have a deep squad and a good team to be able to do it. And now he just wants to, perfect those little things. He's also a lot about, bringing up players and having these young guys play and pushing on players to bigger and greater things. So I think all in all, it's kind of that Pacific mentality that we've seen over the years, even from, I remember 2019 playing against them, how many young guys they had and how many guys they were trying to push on and build. So I think it's just that being portrayed, and then with a little mix of a few older guys or more veteran guys that, now we're starting to see the results of winning games, week in, week out.
Yeah, that continuity to me seems like something that's really important to you guys, especially under James, but on the pitch as well, right? Manny, you have that front three of, Josh and Alejandro and Marco on the right side that obviously you've played a lot with last year. Just how nice is it for you to maybe just have those guys that you've worked with? And it seems like you guys all know where one another are going to be on the pitch at all times. And that's how you're able to find them, right?
Yeah, I mean, as funny as the spin class is, that we do have that tight-knit group where we all we like being around each other. It's not just like on the field and then, we're off the pitch and we hate each other or we're not friends. We're all really good friends. We're always joking around. We're always trying to do extra things off the field to be around each other. At the end of the day, a lot of us, well, Josh is from here, but a lot of us are from out of town. So we kind of have each other and each other's partners to kind of, create those groups. And I feel like that's one of the big things that we've built here. We have a really tight-knit group and a tight-knit team that from the youngest guy to the oldest guy, we're always trying to do things together and doing stuff off the pitch as well, which I think goes a long way as well.
A couple more questions with arguably the best player in the Canadian Premier League in current form, Manny Aparicio. We talked a little bit earlier, Manny, about the tactical change. You heard what Alex had to say and what we've written about it. What was it like to play in it? What did you like about it? And was there any different kind of responsibilities that you had to think about when you go in? Obviously, just covering a midfield with 2, even though you guys did enough work to cover for 3.
Yeah, no, obviously it was different. We knew that Edmonton, knowing from when we played them at their home, they sat back quite a bit more. So our idea was kind of put 3 in the back so we're a little bit more secure. And then get Kunle and Dada Luke and Nate Mavilla up higher, just so we could have that width options, knowing that, Bustos likes to come in a lot. Josh likes to come in a lot. So I think all in all, it was a great game plan. I think it was the game to try it as well, because obviously you can't just try it in any game at home in front of our fans, knowing the way that Edmonton would probably likely play. I think it was the right timing. And then as for me and Jamar in the midfield, yeah, it was at times maybe we felt a little bit outnumbered, but I feel like our idea was to have possession of the ball and recover so quickly, and trying to force them to play that long ball, our 3 center backs winning headers and us just cleaning up the second balls. And I think that's kind of what we executed. In this league, if you watch around the league, a lot of the times whichever team wins the first and second balls is the team that's on the front foot. So if you can win that, and I think that's what we did yesterday, you always have a step ahead of the other team.
I think just while we've got you here, Manny, I think it'd be a shame not to ask about some of the other things that are coming this season. We've alluded to them a couple times, but you guys have some big things coming up in the Canadian Championship and specifically CONCACAF. I'm personally very excited to see what you guys do in that competition. Just how much do you guys talk about what kind of things are on the table for you this year, and how excited are you for those sorts of games?
Yeah, honestly, in the change room, we haven't really talked about CONCACAF much yet. I think, it feels like so long away, where we have, the league coming up, we have cup coming up as well. Now we have a midweek game coming up against York, and, so many things that we still have to play for. But at the end of the day, it is a big accomplishment that we got there. And now we also want to, not only get in there for next year by winning this league, but also get, in further stages, just like Forge has in the past. I think that's what this league is for. I think we have the quality to do it. And at the end of the day, it's going to be fun to go to, I don't know where, maybe Honduras, play away with, those environments and stuff. I think that's what we all play for, to play in those environments with, packed stadiums, with people yelling at you. At least for me, that's my favorite type of games.
and to bring some of those teams to Vancouver Island as well, right? That's gotta be
exactly. Fun. Exactly. Yeah.
We're pretty special indeed. Manny, you've been so gracious with your time. We can't thank you enough. Hopefully you get a bit of rest after dominating a midfield and dominating a spin class this weekend.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. Manny. Thanks for joining us. Manny Aparicio from Pacific FC. Quite frankly, Charlie, has been immense this year, no?
Yeah, he absolutely has. And he's just a very entertaining player to watch on and off the ball. As I said, the way that he kind of chases down opposing midfielders to win the ball back, and then he's able to find those passes up to one of those, those wingers or up to Diaz. It's dominant in a lot of senses. And it's very, very impressive.
Yeah, lots of people to talk about and highlight for Pacific. You mentioned Diaz, Golden Boot leader right now, 5 goals from 7 appearances as well. So, Bustos has been terrific again, and there's a lot to like about that club. Before we go on to our final game, here are the thoughts after this one of FC Edmonton boss Alan Koch.
We haven't been really rewarded because we haven't won a game yet, but you can see the performance are getting better and better. We've been to some tough places to play. I think at times the players are maybe a little fearful. But the more and more of these games we play, the more confidence they're going to get, and they're going to grow from these experiences. So, yes, we're developing players. That's our primary focus. We're keeping a club in a league so the league can continue to grow. But I am, as you mentioned, I am developing players. Hopefully, some for our club, but definitely developing players for other clubs too.
Certainly not a week where they got the victory, but certainly a rewarding week for some of their performances for FC Edmonton, who get Ottawa next week. They go to Ottawa at home. So hopefully they'll look to build on that and try and get their first victory of the season. To our final game of the weekend. For that, we go back to Saturday at Tim Hortons Field, where Charlie and I were both in attendance as Forge, very short-handed Forge, played without any centre-backs. They're all hurt. They went down against a goal to nil early to Atletico Ottawa, who had some really good chances. Balu Tabla, again, was extremely lively. In fact, we're going to get to it, but that right-hand side for Atletico Ottawa caused a lot of problems for Forge, particularly in that first half. And it was no surprise in the end that was the route to their goal. Howarth on the right-hand side eventually combined very, very well here. Again, to the aforementioned Balu Tabla was heavily involved. Just watch the touch here between him and Ollie Bassett. If you're watching on the live show, a tremendous pass in, and Bassett with the delivery and the goal. So a fantastic goal for him. Ollie Bassett again named in the Gatorade Team of the Week this week. And at that point, Ottawa in control of the game, Charlie, and challenged Forge to get back into this one. And as usual, Forge couldn't quite take away the chances that came for them, particularly in the first half.
Yeah, they certainly could. I thought that Forge probably did enough to win this game in the second half, but the goal just didn't seem to fall for them. We see some of these just absolute desperation goal line stops from Ottawa. Bobby Smirniotis spoke a little after the game about how he expected them to do a lot of defending and to sit back a little bit in that block, and they did, and there's nothing wrong with that, and I think they did quite well in it. But Forge they're still not quite there, I think, in the final third, right? I was looking at some of the stats this morning. They're like second in the league in passes attempted. They have the most touches in the box of the entire league. But the weird thing is they have the fewest open play chances in the entire league from the start of the season, which is very uncharacteristic of Forge and surprising, because they still, again, near the top of the league in passes into the box and entries into the final third. But it's just those final chances that they need to come away with, right? We saw a few fall for Taron Campbell in this game, but maybe a moment of hesitation, a split second, where it's not as dangerous or as challenging a shot as you would hope to see from those situations, especially when the ball comes in from the left side and he maybe takes that extra touch to switch it to his right foot rather than just taking it with his left. So it's again, I think it will come for Forge. I'm not particularly worried because of just how much individual quality there is. But I think we saw in this game they were starting to maybe try a few different things in the attack, just because they need it to come off. They play with two strikers with Taron Campbell and Woobens Pacius in this game. Partly maybe there's necessity in there because of just who is available, but we're starting to see them maybe experiment a little and find a different formula because it hasn't fully clicked for them yet.
It's nowhere near clicked enough. And it's been a common theme of our shows every week here. You use the word hesitant. They've been hesitant in front of goal. And we in the media are hesitant to start raising the alert button with Forge because of the way they are. And because they've been slow starters in the past. You wrote the analysis on the website. The Hammers will likely leave this game feeling as if they left 2 points on the table, considering the volume and quality of chances they were unable to finish. 67.7% possession, generated 16 shots to Ottawa's 6, but just 3 on target. 37 touches in the box and 58 final third entries, plus 43 crosses, paint the kind of picture of bombardment they leveled at Ottawa's penalty area, but they continue to lack the clinical edge required to convert most of those chances. I think that's really well said. Think about this. I mean, and I know they could turn it on eventually. We talked a little bit about this last season, and then there was a game last year, I think they played Ottawa that I was at, where they battered them 4-0, and they could have won 8, and suddenly it was like, bang, okay, the floodgates are open, and I think they're going to come. But they've played 5 games now, and the rhythm's lacked because they've missed that one game. I understand that. The Janssen goal was from a set play at Pacific, where they had a lot of the ball, but they couldn't score. Jabrapor's goal was a screamer. Seanware's goal was a bit of a screamer as well in the last minute, right? 2 individual quality goals outside the box or very close to it. And Jensen's was a goal like that as well. Now, the other 3 goals came against Edmonton, and I think we're allowed to put them in a different pots because of the opposition. I think we're allowed to say that, right? Again, ultimately, they're a different team and a different kind of opposition that if you're going to evaluate this club on their credentials to win again, I don't think we'll be evaluating too many games against Edmonton. Is that fair, Charlie?
Yeah, probably. And again, that was the game where Taron Campbell looked like the Taron Campbell we know, right? And we haven't seen that same kind of clinical edge in any of these other games. So, we know it's still there, but they just have to find that way to, again, find him. I think, something that Campbell did a lot at Pacific last year was he would get balls through the middle a lot, especially from, friend of the show, Manny Aparicio would often find him. And this time, Forge have been playing a little bit more from those wide areas, especially against Ottawa in this game. Ottawa gave them absolutely nothing through the middle of the pitch. Forge tried to have Tristan Borges in that sort of number 10 role, but they just could not find him at all. And it's a credit to Ottawa's midfield, absolutely. But the fact that they had to play so many crosses in this game, 43 is an absurd number, but the fact that they had to attack from those wide areas was, maybe not necessarily what they would have wanted to do. So I think, it's that little bit of clinical, precision and quality that just hasn't been there yet. So I don't know how concerned Bobby Smirniotis would be, but he would certainly probably admit that he needs to see a lot more from his team in that final third.
We know there's injuries, but let's hear from Bobby Smirniotis after the game on his thoughts on this one.
Yeah, you ever seen a team play with no center backs? We've done it today, and we've done a pretty good job with it. We have guys that are versatile. It makes your head spin a little bit as a coach, but there's always a solution in how you're going to do it and how you're going to get the best out of different players. Today it was Janssen, who's been excellent playing there as kind of that pivot there, and Ashton and Abu. And I thought they were excellent. They're excellent in allowing us to progress the ball a little bit quicker up the field and playing against a low block. Something that now we've done the last couple of games going back to Wednesday. So it's something we thought that Ottawa would do, and they obviously did, and them getting the goal earlier allowed them to sit a little bit further. But the guys were very good on the ball. How they were defensively, I think it was okay, but they didn't have much to do. So maybe on another day it's a little bit different. But yeah, we're always going to find the solution. We're never going to complain when somebody's missing or so on. We have to find the solution and keep on moving.
Now, on this show, we like to highlight our stars in our Canadian Premier League and bring them to your attention very quickly. We were big on Moosey early on this season. Ali Moosey of Cavalry, Dom Zatori singing his praises. We've got Aparicio and Bustos on the show. Another one I want to sing the praises of is Alexander Ashnoni Janssen, one of our favorites here. Bobby Smirniotis alluded to him there, but I felt in the press conference it was worthy of a follow-up question. Here's Bobby on the Swedish stylish midfielder playing centre-back.
Yeah, 100%. First and foremost, we're lucky to have a player like Janssen playing in this league. This guy can be playing at a higher level. He just reads the game. He reads the game in all ways, whether he's playing in the midfield in an advanced role, in a pivot role in the six, and when he's dropping back to start every attack from back there. So it's great to have a player like that. It makes not having center backs in your lineup easy, because you can put somebody back in there, and he understands things tactically on all parts of the pitch, and that's the great thing about him. He loves to understand what we're doing and why we're doing it, and that shows again in a game like today.
I should also allude to Kyle Becker didn't start the game, came on and played about 20 minutes and then ran about 15K in his sprints after the game. Thankfully, he's back. He was suffering from some sickness earlier in the week and wasn't ready to play 90 minutes. Charlie, but thankfully, Forge still have Janssen when they don't have Matusla, they don't have Samuel, they don't have Crutzen and many others. And boy, oh boy, are they lucky to have a player like that.
Yeah, Janssen is incredible. And he's been in this league for 4 years now. And he's, he's always been this incredible player with his range of passing on the ball. He's, as we've alluded to, he's a midfielder. He's not a natural center back, and he would much prefer to be playing in midfield, I think, from having spoken to him. But he is perfectly happy to play center back when necessary, and he's very good at it in that three. Being that kind of base of the formation there, he's able to, whether it's go out to the side to one of those back three, or he can put it a little bit further up the pitch to a high fullback. Kwesi Poku likes to get up that left side a lot, and he's able to find him. So just Jansson's ability to read the play, especially from just the very back of the formation. He can see everybody on the pitch, everything's in front of him, and he can hit pretty much anybody with a pass from there. So they are, as Bobby said, we're very lucky to have a player like that in the CPL.
Oh, yeah, one of my favorites, no doubt about it. And just an unbelievably cerebral player, so clever. The CPL Busquets, as I call him, because I think that's how good he can be in reading the game. We're finished on Atletico Ottawa, who again get another point, and I think it's very clear now the honeymoon period is over, and it's clear this is not last year's Atletico Ottawa. And it's also not the team that got smashed by 6-1 by Valor. This is a difficult team to break down. Before we hear from the man who wrote the analysis, Charlie himself, let's go back to Tim Hortons Field for some reaction from their goal scorer. Here's Ollie Bassett.
Yeah, it was a shift, to be fair. I think ever since we scored, we were kind of defending, relatively deep. I think the back four had to put their bodies on the line at times to stop the ball going in the back of the net. But I think, on the road against a good team like Forge, the two-time champions, I think we'll take that point for sure.
Charlie, they've been in 7 games now in all competitions, and only that one got away from them. And it's seemingly like an aberration now, that Valor game on the counter-attack. This team is in every game, and they're very difficult to break down.
Incredibly difficult to break down. They started the season playing a lot in that kind of back five, where they would sit a little bit lower and they were very good defensively there. But they've been able to maybe put another man a little higher up the pitch now with obviously Balou Tabla playing in that sort of free-roaming quasi-center forward role up front in their 4-4-2. And they're able to play with a back four and maybe, push some more numbers up the field and come out and play a little bit more. And we're seeing them progress, and it's very impressive. And part of the reason that they're able to, maybe develop play a little bit more and get a little bit further up the pitch is that midfield, I think, which has been so impressive to me. Ollie Bassett, again, a fantastic player in this league who's been just so good in that slightly more, further back role than we would have seen him in Pacific. And, he's playing alongside Abdou Sissoko in this game, but whether it's Sissoko or Ben McKendry, that double pivot, that two-man midfield for Ottawa has been very, very good at just keeping an eye on all of the spaces around those central areas and just making sure that they're marking the opposing team's number 10 or central midfield out of the game, because they were able to, as I said earlier, they blocked out pretty much every passing lane towards Tristan Borges for Forge to try and attack through the middle. And part of that is just the amount of ground that they cover. Ollie Bassett's work rate is phenomenal in this game. We saw him, coming into the 6-yard box to make tackles in this game. And then he was getting up the field, as we saw for the goal, with that incredible run and give and go with Balou Tabla. So I think there's a lot of strength in that Ottawa midfield, and they just make it so difficult to play through them. They don't really give up much space in their own half. So you really do need that kind of individual quality to be able to play through them or step around a player, because they're just not going to give you those easy passes.
Yeah, it's very well said. A very difficult team to break down, and a team that looks good away from home.
Yes.
Really good away from home. Revel in it and find ways to stay in games now. As I said, I think I was talking to somebody on the weekend. That was a game, another one, we'll chalk off to another one, a game they would have lost last year. It would have been a game they would have lost. And this time they stay in it and they're resilient and they find ways to keep in games. Some great comments and questions coming in from the likes of James and Omar and Mitchell. Aaron, thanks for your questions. We're kind of running out of time. Some questions about Omar Brownie. He would be a good addition. I think watch this space. I still think they're still trying to get him here very soon. And yes, Forge will be fine when he comes in as well. So thanks for everyone for your comments and questions and for watching it live. Let's take a look at the Canadian Premier League standings as week 6 has come to a close, and it is Pacific running away with this one. They have played a game more than some, 2 games more than some as well. Top of the clock right now, 16 points from 7, double the amount of anybody else. And then that is about as congested as it comes, as Valor, Cavalry, Halifax, York, and Ottawa all on 8 points. Forge right behind them, 5 from 5, a game in hand on all the teams above them as well. And of course, Edmonton right at the bottom, certainly improving in terms of performance. Looking ahead to the schedule next week as well. What catches your eye here, Charlie?
Ooh, there's some fantastic ones on this docket. Pacific and York will be an interesting one at Starlight Stadium because, they're going to be seeing each other again very shortly in the Canadian Championship. Right. So it'll be interesting to see how many cards either team puts on the table for that game, I think, and see if they feel each other out a little bit for that one. And then Halifax hosting Forge on that Friday night is a very, very interesting one. Both teams with some massive games coming up. Both teams playing an MLS team in midweek in the Canadian Championship following that. So to see, whether either side is able to maybe build a little momentum out of that game, because I think that could be a massive result for either of those two teams. If Halifax are to welcome Forge and beat them at home, or if Forge are able to, find that little piece they need in the attacking third to win that game on the road, that could be a turning point for either team.
We finish off with some breaking news courtesy of our friend Benedict in the chat. It looks like Marcelo Flores' pursuit of Canada is over. It looks like he's chosen to represent Mexico. So that is done. I'm just catching that story right now, but Charlie, your overall thoughts on this? It always seemed like it was going to be a race that then maybe Mexico would win.
Yeah. I'm not surprised, and I don't think it's particularly, impactful, to be completely honest. I don't think that a lot of people, I think, who are so adamant about Canada having to get him probably hadn't seen him play ever. Right. I think, and I'm sure he's a very, very talented player, and a player that would be a credit to Canada and their player pool. But I wouldn't be particularly upset. Canada is a very good team with a lot of depth, especially in the attack. So it would have been nice, but again, you win some, you lose some in this kind of game. So
you want dedicated people to your cause.
Yeah,
you don't want these charlatans deciding whether they want to come to you or not, right? No. Like at the end of the day, like this quote that he said a few weeks ago is like, if Mexico calls me to the World Cup, I'll go. Well, what if they didn't? You want to play for Mexico or you don't want to play for Mexico? So I get it. It's a difficult decision for a young kid, and this is not being negative towards him because he's turned his back on Canada. Wish him all the best. He's a fantastic young player. But at the end of the day, you want people dedicated to the team and not people. Certainly, you know what? That's what we want as Canadians. You know who else wants that, Charlie? The players in the dressing room.
Yes.
The players in the dressing room, all 23 of them or 26 of them go to Qatar, all look at each other and go, I know you want to be here. They don't need people going, oh, I kind of pretended I want to be here. I was looking for another team, but they didn't pick me. So I came in and this was my second choice. No more second choices.
You don't want to be giving up one of those very limited seats on the plane to Qatar to a player who hasn't been there the whole ride for that, incredible qualification journey. So again, nothing to lose sleep over.
You work too hard to build that camaraderie, work too hard to build that chemistry, because it comes from the heart and the wanting to be there. Yeah. And when you insert people into an environment, it's important that you do your due diligence, and they need to be the right characters. So yes, would he have been a great addition on the pitch? Of course. But his heart somewhere else, goodbye.
Move on.
Find someone else. All right. And we'll say goodbye to you, everybody else. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Went a little bit long there. Some breaking news. Canadian Premier League continues to smash bangers every week, by the way. Sean Rayer, again, another screamer. It's been a fantastic weekend. Thank you for watching. God bless. Take care, everybody. And we'll see you next week.